Hey, everybody, we're live. It's Monday afternoon. This is the second interview of today. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to Patrick Jordan here. But first, let's hear from our sponsors.
I need to get going, Mel. See you later.
Patrick, thanks for joining me. I know we had a few issues trying to get in today because institutional Wi-Fi and networks are bane in my life. Whereabouts are you coming from?
I'm in the northeast of England, Billingham.
Right.
Yeah. It's
And
decent.
is it a school, college, university? What?
Well, I'm sat in a college at the moment. Yeah. It's one of the. It's a college that I'm one of the managers at. I didn't have time to get home to do the interview there, so I figured I'd do it here. But then ran into Wi-Fi problems.
No, it's fine. I spent half of my, well, it seems like half of my life, I spent years struggling with Eduroam and various other things in universities and colleges. As I went round universities and colleges trying to talk to them about cloud-based systems, and also, you know, talking to the university IT teams, like, oh, you don't want to do that, not on the cloud, you know, they just lock everything down in universities. It's one of those things.
It's good fun. It's good fun.
Yeah. Well, they don't want students to get hold of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that could be useful. Like music.
Like music. Yeah.
So there you go. So Patrick, talk to me. Tell me, where did music start for you?
Well, funnily enough, it started when I was about 4-year-old. I got a keyboard, learned how to play keyboard. But I really got kind of into music and then into music production actually as a result of going to college.
Right. That's a good link.
It is, yeah, it's quite a nice link. And actually, this college, I came to this college as a student, and now I'm one of the managers here. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I started learning to play when I was about 4-year-old, and that was on keys first. And then I started picking up the guitar when I was about 13, I think, or 14. And then when I came to college, and I studied music at college, there was a really old kind of mixing desk with a 4-track recorder. And I just pulled it out of the cupboard. I was like, oh, I wonder what this does, and started playing around with it. And that's what got me kind of into wanting to go down the music production route. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing for the best part of 20 odd years. Producing music.
Have they still got that? Have they still got that equipment there? Is that gone?
They don't have the 4-track recorder, but when I actually started working here as a teacher, the old mixing desk was still there. So I rescued it. And so that actually sits, it's still here in the college as a kind of a relic. And I showed students it and say, you know, this is kind of how I used to learn. We've got, you know, really, really great facilities now, but it's nice to bring out this horrible, decrepit old mixing board just to show them what it looked like. And
well, it's a shame that you don't have the 4-track recorder as well, just to show students. To go, look, this is tape, folks.
Yeah, this is tape. Look what happens when you pull it out or it doesn't spool properly.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, when I first went to work in radio, we had Ewers.
Yeah,
which is like a reel-to-reel type system and you used to have to all of your editing was Chinograph, pencil, little slicing block, razor blade. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. That's what it's all about. Youngsters these days wouldn't have a clue, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was discussing it with some students a while back. I was just discussing the impact of editing within within Pro Tools, and how that's affected budgets, how it's affected time management, and everything else. You know, taking a chorus out of a song in Pro Tools literally takes seconds. Copy paste or copy cut, move it out the way. You try and take a chorus out of a song recorded to 24-track tape, line it up, mark it, line out the out point, mark it, then get the razor, cut it, then take that section of tape and move it somewhere else, join it with tape, check that it works, and then if you want to, take that chorus and put it elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's not that easy. It's not that easy. You do that little bit of shuffle where you got
that's it. Cue it up.
There it is.
Cue it up.
There it is. Yeah.
Make sure the razor cut is absolutely spot on. What one edit like that is probably 5 to 10 minutes to get it absolutely bang on.
If you're quick.
Yeah. And in Pro Tools, copy C, Control C, done.
Yeah. It's madness, isn't it? It's madness how quick.
What that does to music budgets and what it does to studio budgets and studios' ability to run massive facilities. It's one of the reasons why a lot of these studios have closed down, because people aren't paying that massive amount of money. So it's one of the many things that's happened in the music industry over the past 20 odd years.
Yeah. Well, what about other things in the music industry? I mean, were you ever in love with the music industry per se at all, or did you always see it as a monster about to die anyway?
I've always loved the production side of things. I worked at a recording studio down in London, really big one, Sam West. Trevor Hall was my boss, so I learned all the studio craft from him.
That's a good boss to have.
Oh, it's one heck of a boss to have. And a local lad, actually. He's from County Durham, which I didn't realise until I actually met him and got talking to him, but he's just from round the corner. So that was quite nice. I worked at Sam West and Sam Hook End, which is the big countryside retreat. Worked on a load of projects there, and that was good. And then I moved back up here and I started a band that got signed. So I actually went through that whole label process. So I was in a band called Young Rebel Set, and we were signed to a label. Oasis's label, and we had publishing with Sony ATV. So I've done that whole kind of being signed and do the gigs and
got the t-shirt,
all of that stuff. I've done that, but even at that point, and I think that was about 10 years ago now. Even then, you could see the shift in the industry. You could see what was happening, and you could see some elements of the industry were far too slow to react to it. They really weren't anticipating just how badly physical sales were going to get affected. They hadn't really fully jumped on board with the vinyl explosion that was about to come, and that you could pretty much see coming. But I think they thought it was going to be short-lived. There was a lot of stuff going on at that point. But again, I have this discussion all the time with people about positives and negatives of it. There's so many positives thrown up by the fact that people can be totally independent from a label. But, there are downsides to that too. There's no quality control, and there's no label in charge of things. And there's a lot of noise to cut through as an independent artist as well. So it's quite interesting. I don't think there's necessarily any major negative or positive. It's just a different landscape.
We're all completely, fascinated now by the fact that you've mentioned Trevor Hall. You know that, okay? I mean, did he ever let his hair down, and did you ever jam with him playing bass and you playing guitar or keys or?
Actually, once or twice, yeah. In fact, one of the best stories I've got is while I was at Sam West, they were putting together how many years would it? It might have been 20 or 25 years of Trevor Horn's production kind of thing. And they were putting on a big concert at Wembley. So we were getting all of his old bands in and doing rehearsals with him. So we had Frankie in and Yes and bloody hell, the names are escaping me.
Tattoo and
Tattoo, yeah, all of them.
Yeah,
Bell and Sebastian. We had all of those there.
Yeah.
Seal, Lisa Stansfield, loads of great artists. And it dawned on him that he was going to have to perform himself in the Buggles for Video Killed the Radio Star.
Yeah.
But he hadn't performed with that band in donkey's years. And so he actually wanted to have some rehearsals, and he knew that I could play the drums. On one evening, we had the studio set up because Frankie had just been in there rehearsing. And he said, I just want to rehearse it. Can you play? I was like, okay, yeah. So we started jamming Video Killed the Radio Star, which is one of my favorite. Well, it's one of my favorite songs, let alone one of my favorite Buggles songs. But I'd covered that with my band when I was 16-year-old as well. So there was a kind of a cheeky little link there, which was nice. I got the opportunity to jam that with him. And I sat in on a couple of Frankie sessions when their drummer wasn't very well for a couple of the rehearsals. But yeah, it was just cool. It was really good being in the studio with him.
Oh, that's lovely.
He is a really nice guy. He's a hard taskmaster. He works his staff very, very hard. But he was
To
always
be
kind of
expected.
nice
To be
me.
expected.
Yeah, he was always dead nice to me, and I think part of that was because he was from around the area. I think he knew where I was from. We had that in common. I thought he was great. He was a great boss.
Yeah. Well, to bring it round full circle, one of the first guests I had on here was Jeff Downs.
Oh, excellent, excellent.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So that's the second time that we've mentioned Video Killed the Radio Star.
Well, Jeff Downs obviously ended up being part of that concert. He was there playing keys, and and I think that was the first time the Buggles had performed together. I think since Video Killed the Radio Star was released. I think I'd have to check history for that.
And I know he's played it a fair few times since.
Yes. Since that concert, the Buggles have done quite a few things.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, he's had different people sing it as well, which is quite interesting. Now, in terms of, you said keyboard to begin with, what was your, how did you start on keyboard? Were you a one-hander? Were you two hands?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just started with the one hand, but actually, and I'm not even sure how this happened, but I started on a keyboard, just a standard electric keyboard.
Yep.
And then I graduated really quickly from that to an electric organ.
Right.
So two separate hands and pedals.
You just wanted to be Rick Wakeman, didn't you?
Well, I don't even, at 4-year-old, I've got no idea how that. I suspect my auntie had an organ, and it was something for me to play. So I ended up playing that, and actually, I credit playing the organ for the reason why most other instruments have come so easy. Once you've got that left hand, right hand thing, and then you've got your feet doing something, well, that's drums. You're ready to play drums. I mean, I didn't pick up drumsticks until I was about 14 or 15, but I didn't find it hard, whereas a lot of people struggle with that coordination. And I can only think the reason I didn't find it hard is because I've been playing organ and already had that kind of that separation going on. And that just led on to playing loads of other instruments.
Yeah. That makes total sense. I'd always struggle with that. I mean, do you know what? When I was younger, I occasionally picked up drum sticks and played drums just to get the frustration out. I could do a reasonable sort of 4/4 time or whatever, 12 bar blues, that's fine. Anything else completely rubbish. And I do a good funk beat, but I cannot play drums for the life of me. We had a fantastic drummer in our first band who's gone on to be a world famous drummer in the guise of Troy Miller. But so there was no way that I was playing drums, but I do enjoy it as a cathartic exercise.
It's a great instrument. Drums, they're just a fantastic instrument to get lots of energy out. But they can be really creative. It's a really creative instrument, and I love playing that part on my tracks. It's one of my favorite parts of recording is playing drums.
You mentioned the part of the country that you're from.
Yeah.
How much has that part of the country influenced you in terms of music as well?
Well, there's lots of music scenes around here, and certainly when I was growing up, there were a lot of music scenes around here.
Anyone in particular?
Well, particularly the rock scene around here was massive, and so I was really quite heavily into rock, punk rock, pop rock, all of that type of stuff. So certainly while I was a teenager, I was playing very loud guitar to anything that had really nice riffs and big chords, and most of the bands in the area were. Then when I moved away to London and came back, the whole rock scene had changed very much into an indie scene. And bands like Maximo Park, they're literally from this town. And the bands that I was then working with and producing were all very much indie style. And then the band that I ended up forming, Young Rebel Set, was very much an indie type band, but it had these really kind of strong country twists to it, which was always one of the things I really liked about the band, and then have subsequently kind of stuck with all of my own stuff. It's not out and out country, but there's a definite element of country to a lot of the stuff I do. So I think it's definitely had an influence. But the people I've worked with locally, I think, have had the biggest influence. Just picking different things up from the different songwriters and different musicians that I end up working with.
In terms of that kind of country sort of crossover indie type thing, did you follow bands like Prefab Sprout at the time?
A little bit. I was kind of introduced to them retrospectively.
Right.
That was actually my former boss bought me a couple of records of Prefab, and so I listened to some of that and quite liked it, but I was already well and truly down the country route at that point. I think something happened probably around 2005, 6, probably to do with Johnny Cash.
Right.
Obviously, his big resurgence is come back with Rick Rubin. I think listening to that, and I thought, I really like this. And that led me down more of that alt country, outlaw country type thing with Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and people like that. And then I've just kind of always liked that element of country. I'm not a huge fan of the big kind of polished pop country stuff.
No.
But really like that raw stuff with acoustic guitars, maybe some big electric guitar riffs in there. I really like Chris Stapleton. I like what he's doing at the moment. I think he's fantastic. I'm not really into that kind of cowboy country stuff, though. That really polished stuff. Did you
feel it also naturally sort of suited your voice as well?
There was definitely that element. Certainly the Johnny Cash stuff. I do have quite a low voice. I can get really high, but it seems to sit more naturally lower. And so I think I was listening to all of that stuff, and that kind of sat a little bit better with the stuff I wanted to do. But then that was true with the rock stuff. A lot of the rock stuff I was listening to tended to be lower male voices. One of my favorite bands is Crash Test Dummies. Which
very low.
Yeah, and that's doing that once there was this boy who
what a great song.
Great, yeah. But that's a fabulous album as well. That album hasn't ever got the attention it deserves. God Shuffled His Feet is a fantastic album. And again was one of the things that got me into production. So I heard that song, then heard that album, and that was one of the things that pushed me into wanting to produce music as well as write music.
No, that makes sense. There's a lot of lovely little elements in that album.
Yeah, it's really good. Produced by one of the, or mixed at least by one of the Alge brothers. So it's phenomenally well put together.
Yeah. So in terms of your current writing, what sort of themes are you writing about?
Anything and everything. I haven't really written much about things like COVID because I think people have probably had enough of all that. But I have been writing about things that have been going on, a lot about relationships, a lot about, I've written about the death of one of my friends and how that's affected me. That's on this new album. And I've written about kind of dealing with issues and things like that. I've had a lot of issues with anxiety over the past few years, and so there's a lot of that in the records that I've been working on. And
there's very few people that have wanted to write a COVID-based album, quite rightly, probably. But I guess
people have written lockdown albums, but not about COVID.
Yeah, but at the same time, you've lived through it, so you can't really not write about it, if you know what I mean.
It has to feed in some way. It has to feed in, and I certainly see that through some of the stuff I've produced for bands. But COVID's been an interesting time. Lockdown's been an interesting time because I've probably been busier than I ever have as a writer and as a producer. So I'm already writing a nearly finished album 4, yet album 3 isn't out yet. So there's been a lot of time to spend writing rather than gigging. And then a lot of artists that I've been working with have been recording stuff at home and then sending it to me to either mix, or I've been working with them online. So I've been producing a band out in Nashville called Lynn and Ray. I was meant to fly out there and produce it, but COVID kicked in. We couldn't leave the country. So we completed the whole album just by sending files backwards and forwards and having emails. And they've just finished the album. It's just been sent off for mastering, and that's going to be a really cool project, but done completely in isolation.
What's it like doing all of this music for yourself, but at the same time teaching? Are
Is it?
your yeah? But are your students like cool with it, that what you're doing, or is it like a youngster dad situation like I have here, where it's never cool. It's never cool to like your dad's music. Is it cool? I'm asking. Is it cool to like your lecturer's music or your?
I think so. I mean, certainly one of the things I've just finished with some of the students last week is the newer students, we just recorded a track. Normally, I would just do a cover and just work stuff through them, but I wanted to kind of expose them to the writing process. So we recorded one of my songs, and one of the students actually said, "Is this a real song? Like, what do you mean? Is it a real song?" It's like, "Is it a real song?" It's like, "Yeah, it's a real song, and we're going to release it." And he really liked the idea that he was working on something in the studio with a band, with an artist that was actually going to be released. So I think from that point of view, it definitely has credibility. My son likes my music. That's kind of cool. He plays my music, and I know some of the students do. I'm sure there's other bands musicians that they will listen to far more than me. But yeah, some of them do, and that's kind of nice. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily uncool.
No, well, that's good. I mean, it's a different situation. I've never spoken to someone that's been in your situation before, so
yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's hard producing music for other bands and write my own stuff when I'm also obviously working here at the college.
Yeah. Does it ever feel like it's a little bit of a busman's holiday then, or is it easy for you to sort of create the right headspace for yourself to do the different elements, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I've had to work at it, but it's become easier. Certainly as a writer, as a producer, it's easy because that's a job that you're working on, and coming to work is a job that you're working on. As a writer, that has taken more discipline. But that was a problem I had as a writer, full stop. I've been in bands since I was 16, but actually sitting and writing songs with no one else helping, that was something that I've only been doing for the past few years. And I'm very good at writing music and could record you an entire album with no lyrics in a couple of days. Quite literally could just write the whole thing. But writing the lyrics and finishing it off and getting into that headspace, that's an entirely different thing. So when I set about doing the first few EPs, I set out a new work ethic, which was very much, I'm not going to allow myself to record, because that was the thing I loved, not going to allow myself to record until I can play the song in full on an acoustic guitar with lyrics. Once I can do that, then I can let myself enjoy myself on those things. So changing that work ethic brought about a whole different approach to writing anyway, which then probably translates across to keeping things separate from work and writing and getting into those headspaces. So if I'm going to sit down now, I will sit down with an acoustic guitar or an electric and write the song. And then once that song's written, then I'll take it through into recording. And from there, it's generally a very quick process. I've done a few things on Instagram where I've shown people recording a full song in a day, literally writing, playing all the instruments, recording it, and mixing it in one day. And if you can get into the right headspace for that, it's quite straightforward. But I do tend to write when I've got more free time.
We've talked about work ethic quite a few times on this show, and with different artists, and the one interview that keeps coming back for me is the interview where it was Paul Weller and he was with Duffy.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you ever remember watching that, and he was being asked to give Duffy advice just after her first album on, how to approach writing that difficult second album.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, just keep writing. Right. And you go along with that.
Yeah. I think it is a work ethic thing.
Because not everything that's going to come out is great.
Exactly that. And I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea of that inspiration thing, waiting for inspiration to happen. I think you can create moments to allow inspiration to happen.
Yeah.
As opposed
if you're not writing, you're not. Nothing's going to come out.
Exactly. If you're spending your time playing on the computer, or if you going out playing football, or doing whatever it is you do other than writing, you're not necessarily just going to get that spark. But actually, if you sit down with a guitar or piano, drums, whatever it is you play, or just whatever, and just start working through things, you will come up with a riff and you'll come up with a lyric, and some of it will be rubbish and some of it will be really good, and you'll want to pursue some of it and others. I always have my phone with me for recording ideas. And if something comes up, I'll record it. And one of the other kind of rules I have is if I can't remember it a day later, I generally don't come back to it because it wasn't memorable enough for me to think about. But I always have the phone as a backup. And yeah, most of the songs that I end up finishing are songs that I've gone, oh, I remember that song. Go back to my phone, pull out the exact melody, pull out those things, and then finish it off. So I think if those inspirational moments strike, it is cool that we've got phones and things like that around where you can just record a quick voice memo or record a quick guitar part. But I think you have to create those moments and create the spaces for inspiration rather than simply waiting for that to happen.
I totally agree. Patrick, we're going to tell people where they can get your music in a minute. But before we do that, the one question I'd like to leave people with is, and you've played and met some great people already. But if there's one person, dead or alive, that you could play with,
easy,
or work with, yeah, go on then.
Yeah, Mark Knopfler.
Right.
Yeah. One of my biggest inspirations as a guitarist and as a musician, Mark Knopfler. Wouldn't even need to think twice about it.
Yeah. What is it about Mark Knopfler?
Well, firstly, if you hear a guitar and he's playing it, you know he's playing it without seeing that he's playing it. You know it's Mark Knopfler. And there are not a lot of guitarists that have such an imprint on a sound.
Absolutely.
There are many, but there aren't lots of guitarists that you just go, that's Mark Knopfler. And for me, that's him. He's really good. He's a phenomenally good lyric writer, and really underrated from that point of view. Listen to any of the Dire Straits, older Dire Straits probably more so, but listen to any of the Dire Straits stuff, and some of the lyric writing's amazing. I mean, Romeo and Juliet, the lyrics to that are phenomenal. The lyrics to Tunnel of Love are absolutely phenomenal. But then you listen to the song structure of something like Tunnel of Love, which, it's 5-6 minutes and it goes through loads of different kind of parts to it. It doesn't go verse, chorus. I just think he's a very underrated songwriter and guitar player. I agree. I know everyone knows Knopfler, but I still think he flies a little bit under the radar of proper guitar heroes and of proper, really good songwriters. I just think he's very, very good.
Yeah. And I suppose it's one of those things where, unlike some of the sort of rock guitarists or whatever that just kept trying to be a rock guitarist for as long as they could, he discovered his own little nettle as well. I mean, his solo stuff and whatever is, I think it's fantastic.
Career. I mean, if you want rock stuff, look no further than Money for Nothing. It's got one of the best rock riffs ever written. It's phenomenal. But then look at the stuff he did with, his name's gone, Chet Atkins. Loads of hardcore country that he's doing, loads of chicken picking and stuff like that. And then all of the folk stuff he's done. And then his soundtrack work, loads of orchestral and soundtrack arrangements. He's done so many different things. He's just a really good songwriter, as opposed to, as you said, a rock guitarist. He just covers a load of ground. I could listen to just Mark Knopfler forever.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think that's a perfect answer, and maybe one day, I hope you'll get to do that.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That would be a wonderful thing. Patrick, thanks so much for joining me today. So in terms of your music, what's out now and what is coming up in terms of releases, and where can people get it?
Yeah, so the single Silver Linings came out last Friday, so that's available for people to download. You can get that on all of the usual download sites, and you can buy it on Bandcamp. My next album, which is also called Silver Linings, that comes out in March. It's about the 26th of March, something like that. And again, available from all those places, available on Bandcamp. Hopefully you can catch me on some gigs as well. So keep an eye on my website. Check out my Instagram as well, Patrick Jordan Music. Everything's Patrick Jordan Music, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Bandcamp, all of those places.
Perfect. And Mr. Knopfler, if you're listening, he'd like a support slot.
Yeah, please.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me, and speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye for now.
Bye.